Good day. It is I, Noj Zotl of Mandalore, and today we're going to talk about games, books, movies, and relationships. Ah, get this thing off my head. Oh, dearie me, ladies and gentlemen. I might just be a little bit excited about a local con I'm going to as old Dinny Boy Joran. Ah. Now then, Dinny aside, as I said, or at least I hope it came through despite having that bucket on my head, today we're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff, but first, I gotta gush about going as the Mandalorian. I quite like the show, even if it is a little lacking in narrative consistency at times, but damn is that some cool armor, and damn is it some cheap armor to make. So I'm quite excited about wandering around the George R. Brown Convention Center as Din Djarin, where I'm going to get to meet some Mandalorian actors. I'm going to meet Katie Sackhoff, who played Bo-Katan. I'm going to ask how she can possibly do anything in some kind of helmet like that. I'm going to meet Carl Weathers, who is Grief Karga. Just going to talk to him a little bit about the Predator and a few other things like that. I'm also going to meet who he's not in the Mandalorian. Well, I can't think of his name at the moment. Ron Perlman, and I'm going to relate to him a story that's kind of funny. Back in 2013, when I went to Space City Con, I met Robert Picardo, and I told him about the then new Pacific Rim film, and he was all like, "Is Ron Perlman in that?" I was like, "Yeah," and he was like, "I guess I got to go see it." I wonder what he's going to make of that. I'm also going to meet. This is a late edition. Danny Trejo. I'm quite excited about that as well. So it should be quite a bit of fun, but wearing that thing on my head doesn't seem quite as fun. I'm probably not going to wear it the entire time, and I can't see a thing in that. I can't see a thing in that helmet. It's there's a little tiny visor that I can see through, and I can't wear my glasses, and I didn't bother getting any contacts, so I'm going to be kind of screwed, but whatever. Should be fun. Got me a new chest piece coming in because the one that came with that helmet wasn't the best, but yeah, it should be a fun time. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, what about relationships? Well, I've been wanting to talk about that subject for a while, but I keep just kind of moving on from it because I've got other stuff to talk about. But I saw a video filled with such boomerisms that I just kind of had to say something about it. So relationships are one of those touchy topics that vary from person to person. Some people are looking for different kinds of relationships from myself, and so some of what I say may not actually apply to them or to you. Basically, in life, it's up to you what you want to do with it. You don't need to listen to some idiot prattling on about whatever. But this is just my observations and perhaps advice. But the boomerism in particular, there's two boomerisms. It was from a video by a gun tuber named Paul Harrell. I'm not calling him out, I just disagree with his boomerisms. Because he is a boomer, after all. And the boomerism, the first, is one that's still fairly common even in 2021. And that is, chicks dig the car. If you got a fancy car, the chicks will love you. But wouldn't you want to have a relationship based on more than what kind of car you drive? The next thing is, chicks aren't really into masculine hobbies. This is very much a boomerism because even back during the boomer days, there were females who were into what were considered masculine hobbies. Chicks that enjoyed what rudimentary video games existed, chicks who enjoyed stuff like Star Wars and Trek and stuff like that. In fact, my mother, who would have been, she's not a boomer because she's too young to actually be a boomer. It's kind of funny. My grandparents are just the generation slightly, just ever so slightly before the boomers. So my mother comes ever so slightly after the boomers. It's kind of funny, really, how that works. But she was into sci-fi when it wasn't considered normal for girls to be into sci-fi. In fact, she was disparaged quite a bit for enjoying Star Trek. So the boomerism of chicks aren't into this stuff simply isn't true. Now, there are chicks who aren't in it, but, well, if you're going to date somebody, wouldn't you want to date somebody with, similar interests and things of that nature? But the thing is, when it comes to relationships, the thing I want to point out, something I haven't seen anyone else really talk about, is whenever I hear relationships brought up, even by non-boomers, it almost always seems like they're being adversarial. It's where the opposite sex is the adversary. It's like, oh, you got to do this, otherwise she won't like you, or you got to do that, or they'll think you're stupid, or something like that. Really, if you want a relationship that's actually going to, work and be mutually beneficial for both parties, don't approach the opposite sex as though they're an adversary that you have to defeat or win against. Really, getting into a relationship should be something fun, something good, something that are two people sharing similar interests. It should be something along those lines, and not, "Oh, I got to impress her with my muscles or my car or my muscle car." You're setting yourself up for failure. The whole idea of getting especially when it comes to marriage, like getting a prenuptial agreement is. You want to marry somebody, I guess, because it's the thing to do, but you don't trust them enough with your money. So my thought is, why not just stay, dating? Because my thought is this: if you can't trust somebody with your money, how could you trust them with your life? And why would you marry somebody you can't trust with your life? Why would you date somebody you can't trust with your life? That's just my 2 cents on that. I'm sure I'll piss off the MGTOWs, but really, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to try to date the opposite sex, why not treat them like a human being and, try to be friends and then see where it goes from there? Now, I'm not the best example of successful relationships, but then again, those relationships were good enough that when they ended, the former significant other didn't absolutely despise my very existence. So there's that. And they didn't try to fuck me over either. In the bad way. So that's just something to think about that. You gotta try to find somebody that, is actually a legitimately good person. And you can tell that pretty quickly by how they act with other people, how they talk to you. Just look beyond surface level and you'll find the real person. But then again, if you just want to get laid, then I guess you wouldn't care about that. But, well, you pays your money, you takes your chances, I suppose. But with that in mind, relationships can be successful. I mean, there is such a thing from the MGTOWs that, no relationship is ever successful, but that's just hyperbole. I have my grandparents who have been together since 1962, you can do the math, and my mother and stepfather. Theirs was actually an interesting example of a whirlwind romance that actually worked. At least until, unfortunately, he passed this year from pancreatic cancer, but, well, that has nothing to do with a relationship, that's just biology. So, yeah, it can happen, and it can work. I think a lot of this negative views of relationships are just people cherry-picking the particularly bad ones, The thing is, if you're worried about some chick me-tooing you just on a whim, you can tell if that person is crazy before you do anything with that person. You can usually tell if this person is good or bad just from a few interactions. I mean, I'm not even particularly well versed in body language and vocal intonations, and even I can tell that. So it's just one of those things, Whenever you do anything, there's always a chance of success and failure, and the more work you put in, the better chance for success. Relationships fail. They failed with me on multiple occasions, but, I don't blame the concept of being in a relationship. It's just trying to get two people to work together, not easy, and hence why all the disorder in the various nations and things of that nature. If two people can't get along, how do you think multiple millions are? So that's just my 2 cents on relationships. Don't treat the opposite sex like an adversary. Pay attention to what people say and do, and don't just try to get into a relationship to get laid. The more effort you put in, the better you'll actually be. So with that in mind, we're going to move on to reviews. As of today, as you can see from the paraphernalia, we're taking a look at MechAssault. That's going to be out, I believe, second week of July. I kind of wanted to get it out in June, but I got distracted by a video game. And that video game, I'll talk about it more in a little bit. It's called Outward. It is basically Dark Souls meets Breath of the Wild, and it's kind of becoming a bit of a time sink, so yeah. But after we get done with MechAssault, we're going to take a look at Aliens vs. Predator 2 Primal Hunt. I'm currently live streaming that. It's a lot of fun. Thanks to AVP Unknown, I believe his name is, or AVP Galaxy Unknown. I can't remember exactly at the moment. For telling me about the fact that the multiplayer works. In order to get that game to run in 2K widescreen resolution, you have to download the AVP2 Master Server patch, and that allows you to play AVP2 multiplayer. And it works pretty well. I did that in a live stream, and I'm going to live stream some multiplayer matches each time I live stream the game. In the future, I might do like some sort of fan meetup if I can have the time, which I may not. Once we get done with AVP 2 Primal Hunt, we're going to move straight on to AVP Classic 2000, and then after that, there's not going to be any game reviews until November and December, when I do Terminator Resistance and Fallout New Vegas. I'm going to need a lot of time to get those done because they're pretty long RPGs. And I really want to do them justice. Now, the AVP Classic 2000 review is a retrospective. I did a short review, I think, like, oh my god, a decade ago. But this one's going to, go into every level and go into all the factions and stuff like that. So, should be good. Also, AVP 2 Primal Hunt is going to be a full-on retrospective as well. I have to cancel Necromunda Hired Gun just because I don't have time. There's going to be some gun videos coming out. Again, it's been raining almost every day, so I can't get to the rifle range. And then when I went to the rifle range a few days ago, as of this recording, for some reason my PTR 91 doesn't have an extractor spring. I was cleaning it after the range session, and during the range session it was constantly jamming. I was getting double feeds. It was ridiculous. Then I took the bolt and bolt carrier group out. I'm looking at it, and then all of a sudden, the extractor just plops off. That's not good. And extractor spring is just gone. I don't know what the hell happened to it. The only thing I can think of is it wasn't there in the first place. And yet, when I went to shoot it the first time, I put 60 cartridges, 40 steel and 20 brass. Not a single hiccup. I don't know what happened to it. It's just gone. So I picked up a new recoil spring and not recoil spring, extractor spring and a new old stock G3 extractor. It's becoming more German all the time. I also picked up a enhanced recoil buffer. The original G3 buffer was designed to withstand rifle grenades, but seeing as how I don't have any of those, because I'm not a dealer, I don't think even dealers can get like dealer sample grenades, but whatever. Since I don't have rifle grenades, and I'm not going to shoot like the dummy inert ones, because why? I'm getting one that will reduce recoil by about 40%, which is pretty good. We'll see if it does. The G3 doesn't really need it, because it really is just sort of like 1.5 times the recoil strength of, say, 7.62x3.9 out of an AK. But when you're using an optic, it does kind of push you around a little bit when you're shooting from a bench. So I'm hoping to reduce that push just a little bit. So we will see how that works. The second shots of the PTR should be sometime in August, because I cannot get to the rifle range, because I'm going to be too busy with the old comic paloozas. Let's see. There's also going to be another gun series where I build, well, not really build, assemble an AR-15. Basically, it's going to be a budget, what would Stoner do carbine? If you follow In Range TV and Gun Jesus, they both built this, or they inspired the construction of this what would Stoner do? Stoner being the inventor. Well, he didn't really invent the AR-15. He worked Eugene Stoner and, well, I can't remember his name now. I think the guy's last name is Sullivan. I mean, he doesn't like that. Oh, yeah, Eugene Stoner and that Sullivan guy. Whatever. It's kind of like Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. It's like, Stan Lee, he's awesome. Who's Steve Ditko? But anyway, yeah, it's supposed to be this souped-up epic AR. Mine is not going to be quite as, shall we say, expensive as the stock What Would Stoner Do carbines. Now, what came out of this What Would Stoner Do carbine project was the KP15 monolithic polymer lower. It's just a polymer lower that works, that doesn't beat itself apart. In fact, there are lowers that don't beat themselves apart that aren't monolithic, but this is supposed to be the best of the best of the best, sir, and the lightest. So we'll see if it's as good as they say it is. I'm going to start with that, then get a PSA lightweight upper. Going to get some enhanced trigger springs. Not a whole new trigger, but just an enhanced trigger springs. Going to get a primary arms red dot with a magnifier. And finally, a Magpul bipod. So it should be a fun little project to work on. I'm going to get that done by about October. I'm not going to rush it. I was going to say I was going to put some Troy sights on there, but if I'm not mistaken, PSA ships their lightweight uppers with Magpul imbus. So that's going to be that. So it should be a fun little project. The black powder pistol video isn't going to come out anytime soon because the last couple black powder pistol attempts have been dumpster fires, so that's just going to wait for a while. Maybe at the end of this year, we'll just have to see. Outdoor excursions are going to come back for a little bit. I recently did some indoor skydiving via iFly, which is a company that is pretty much all across the United States. I don't know if it's worldwide or not, but I know it's throughout the entire U.S. There's 2 locations in the Houston area alone. It was a lot of fun. I've got some video of that. But it's if you live near one, you got to try it. It's not like you jump down. It's just you walk into this fan that will hold you up. There's going to be a guy in there, and he's going to like fly you around about up to 20 feet. It's a lot of fun. It's something to be experienced. I'm also going to do a video of a helicopter tour of Galveston. That's coming out as well. I'm not sure when these are going to come out. I have the footage for the iFly, but I don't have the helicopter thing yet. I'm also tempted to do something at Comic Palooza, but I'm primarily going there just for fun. We'll see. Let's see. Possibly another outdoor excursion in the future will be to a local cavern. Well, it's not local, but it's in Texas. Not sure when that's going to be either. So there's still good stuff coming. I'm really looking forward to getting those RPGs done. RPGs are the hardest things to review, just because of how long the games are, but should turn out fine enough. Let's see here. Video games, books, and there's no movies to really recommend because I haven't seen a film since King Kong vs. Godzilla. So, video games. Outward is a game you can find on Steam. It's also on consoles as well. That is Dark Souls mixed with Breath of the Wild. It has Dark Soulsian combat with a gigantic open world. It is entirely an old school RPG, except it's got all the new school quality of life improvements. I think it's done by the same people who did the Risen pirate RPGs, except it's way, way better than all of those Risen games put together. I tried Risen 2 and it was crap. And I absolutely horrible user interface and the game didn't explain anything. Outward explains what you need to do. It's got a needs system. You have to drink water. You have to sleep. If you get too cold, you might die. It's pretty much... That's kind of ripped off from Breath of the Wild, and it works pretty well. It's not like Dark Souls in that when you die, you lose everything, but when you die, it's kind of like Mount and Blade. You kind of get taken by whatever kills you, and you might lose some stuff, but you usually can find your backpack. The game's combat system requires you to drop the backpack so you can fight more effectively. It looks harder than it really is. It's one of those games that, like with Dark Souls, if you watch the tutorial videos on YouTube, you'll pretty much have a good start. But it's a game you can kind of lose yourself in, and you can lose yourself in, like, not necessarily the combat or the exploration, but just sort of like the living, because the need system is very nicely streamlined, and so it's not boring or tedious, so it's kind of fun, like hunting down animals for food so your character can go further and further. It's just a really nice game, and it runs pretty well. I haven't had any crashes at the desktop yet. On the Steam summer sale, I think it was like $11, so if you want to wait for it to be on sale, it's pretty cheap. It's just an example of how independent games are just kind of, well, killing it, because the last AAA game I really enjoyed was Titanfall 2, and that franchise is dead. Let's see, what other games? I've also been playing a lot of Huntdown. A fan recommended that to me. It's a side-scrolling shooter that is really bloody fun. Absolutely great music. The graphics are good. It's delightfully difficult. I don't know how much that is on Steam at the moment, but it's definitely worth picking up as well. It has a very nice 80s vibe. So then we've got The Mummy Demastered. Another fan recommended me that game. It is a 2.5D Metroidvania game set in the aborted dark universe of the Universal Monsters, where there was the one Mummy movie with that generic guy, Tom Cruise. There we go. He was in that. It wasn't a very good movie. I mean, my grandfather and I both like some schlock, and when my grandfather is like, that movie was awful, you know it's gotta be bad. So, the game is pretty good, though. It runs only in 1080p, not 2K, but then again, I think it was supposed to be like a DS game or something, or I guess the DS was old by that point. Whatever, it was originally a handheld game or a phone game or something. Well worth playing, though. I'm not a big fan of Metroidvanias, but I'm actually kind of working my way through it in what little time I have. Which is not a lot, because it's mainly taken up by Outward. But whatever. Mod recommendations. Actually, there's some mod news that's kind of annoying. Evidently, Blade of Agony got taken down because I think the creator credited somebody by the wrong name. Uh, so, yeah, I mean, that's the fickle world of ModDB. But Blade of Agony, I only got to play a little bit of that because, once again, there's so many games to play, so much crap to do. It's pretty good. The intro is very depressing, but it is a World War II game because the intro of that game starts at a concentration camp. Yeah, pretty dark indeed. But the mod is well worth playing if you can get through the depressing dreariness of the concentration camp. But remember, World War II game, you can't really ignore the whole, genocide thing. So that's worth playing. I would recommend again Wolfenstein X if you haven't played that already. It lacks the concentration camp, but it amps up the Natsock killing. Brutal Wolfenstein also has an update finally, also worth playing. Let's see. There's some other games I want to talk about. Other mods. I know Duke, the Duke Alien Armageddon mod got updated, but I couldn't get that to work right, and I haven't had the time to mess with that in a long time. But it looks like it's pretty good. They introduce a Counter-Strike style weapons buy system. If I can get the bloody thing to work, that looks like that might actually be a lot of fun. So if you can get it to work, I recommend giving it a try. And finally, Project Brutality version 3 I think is done. And it's actually a lot more well optimized than the previous editions. I don't really like some of the new weapon designs, but it runs a lot better to the point where I kind of play that exclusively now whenever I play Doom. Let's see, any more games? I almost had it. There's a Warhammer game, I think like Blade of Chaos or something. I played that a little bit before Necromunda came out, and I haven't really gotten back to it yet. It's a Warhammer Fantasy game that's basically Diablo, but it really is a lot of fun. I think just because the universe really lends itself well to a game setting. Too bad it didn't sell enough models and it got canceled. But anyway. Also, there's one more game that I've only been able to play for like 5 seconds, which is a G.I. Joe third-person shooter. I can't remember the name of it, but it's on Steam. It's remarkably good for what is basically just a cash-in kind of kids game kind of thing. It has a lot of respect for the 1980s. And it plays remarkably well. So if you want just sort of a time-waster third-person shooter set in G.I. Joe, there you go. Actually, this is going to be a bit of a tangent, but I don't want to forget this. In a live stream, I mentioned that James Bond is effectively a superhero, and like the good James Bonds, the non-super-duper serial ones, just treat him like a superhero. Everybody knows who he is, and he's constantly taking down supervillains. In every sense of the word, James Bond, in the fun years, was a superhero. And I often like to think that he exists in the same universe as G.I. Joe. Because, well, you have the Space Marines in Moonraker, and it's just like, it's G.I. Joe. It's proto-G.I. Joe. Let's see. Books. I'm going to recommend a couple Warhammer 40k books. The Warhammer 40k Book 1, Dawn of Fire, really bloody good, introduces some cool characters. We get to see Rabute Gilliman kicking ass. The latest Dark Imperium book, which is really kind of confusing because there was already a Dark Imperium anthology of short stories, but whatever. Dark Imperium Godblight. Needless to say, the 40k Reddit page is filled with all sorts of arguing and whining and complaining. I'm just kind of annoyed by 40k theories. It got too political, because of course it got political, and it's just a bunch of whining and bickering. But anyway, then why am I talking about it? Because I can! Godblight is where some serious shit goes down. Writing is pretty good, and 40k is going places. And I sincerely hope it's not going to be rebooted like Warhammer Fantasy was. That still pisses me off to this day. I hope it actually has, like a happy ending. Because, as I always say, Warhammer 40k is not in any way, shape, or form a grimdark series. Yeah, it says grimdarkness, whatever. But there's a lot of good hero factions, and I think that humanity could pull it out in the end. I think they should. I think they got enough good guys on their side that they should be able to do it. Dan Abnett finally released Penitent. I don't know if that was this year or last year when he released it, but I finally got around to reading it this year. It is so much better than Pariah. I actually hated Pariah so much, I returned it because it was filled with so much purple prose. Penitent actually has really good writing for the Beta Beckon character. It's got a pretty good plot. It's got almost like a Dark Souls mind screw towards the end. It's pretty bloody beautiful. There's my phone going off again. It's really damn good. Let's see, another book. Exo Hunter, Rise of Dark Horse is a book I just finished, I think yesterday as of this recording. It's a Jeremy Robinson novel, and it's not bad. It's not Alpha Prime, but it's not bad. I'm kind of fond of it. I'm not sure if I'd read it again. Basically, it is the most 80s book to ever 80s it up. It is basically like Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon in terms of the 80s. So what you got is an elite Marine Rapid Reaction Team is sent to Antarctica. There they find an ancient artifact that sends them into the far future of 2989. Dark Horse, their leader, has to figure out how to deal with the future where space Nazis have taken over. Now, you might think, is it going to get woke? Because the term white supremacist is thrown around here and there, and basically in that book's universe, white supremacists took over in the 2030s. It's not woke. It doesn't demonize white people or anything like that. It is just a fun, classical 80s book. The reason why it's not Alpha Prime is I don't like the ending. It doesn't really end, and in the author's forewords, because he's doing this to get more money, which I can understand, but it annoys me. It's like, well, if you like it, be sure to leave a review so I might revisit it. It's like, dude, just finish the fucking book. You know, I liked it back before the internet days where people would actually just finish a goddamn book. But other than that, it's pretty good. Good characters. The plot is very 80s. Got giant monsters here and there. It actually ties into other books as well of his. He's basically creating the book equivalent to a cinematic universe. There's references to a bunch of books of his that I haven't even read. But it's worth reading if you enjoy 80s stuff. My grandfather even enjoyed it, but he was annoyed that they were constantly referencing 80s songs, which, for me, is pretty awesome. I like the 80s music. Let's see. What else we got? Books, movies, games. I always try to think of everything. The problem with doing these once a month is I always end up forgetting half the shit I wanted to say earlier in the month. But time being what it is. Let's see, any books or TV shows? Bad Batch. Bad Batch is still going pretty strong. Evidently the ratings aren't supposed to be very high, but I really hope they that show doesn't get canceled, because it actually is just a fun action-adventure show. They actually get the kid character right. I really like the Omega character because I still remember the days. Oh, I remember the days of Wesley Crusher. You know, the kid who's smart and good at everything. Thankfully, the Omega character is not smart and good at everything and actually gets her ass kicked a few times, but does contribute to the plot and isn't constantly showing up the Bad Batch. So, if you haven't watched the show, I recommend it. I know everybody hates Star Wars now because of what Kathleen Kennedy did to it, but don't let shows like Bad Batch suffer. But if you don't want to watch it just to spite Disney, I perfectly understand that. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is still July. It's still June. Here's hoping July can be a better month. And looking forward to all the views and all the videos. And I want to thank all of you for watching the show for all these years. And so I am General Utz, wishing you good Mech Assault 1 and good Mech Assault 2, or whatever makes you happy. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this great content.